Hello and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television, where we keep you up to speed with major developments and updates in the world of business, finance, commerce, trade, and the stock market is not left out. I am Christiana Amodu Otiains, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to the program today. First, we begin with the headlines, and we'll begin from the financial sector. Cash limits. POS operators give Central Bank of Nigeria ultimatum. Raw materials imports dips 22.36% to 1.88 trillion naira. We'll give you more updates on these business stories later on in the program. However, let's take a short break. When we come back, time to go into the stock market. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's go straight into the stock market. We begin from the home buzz in Nigeria, talking about the Nigeria exchange. We saw an appreciation of 0.17%. That's where the market ended the week. However, the all-share index of the Nigeria exchange settled at 49,316.29. Now on activity levels, the total volume of 103.71 million shares, valued at 2.01 billion naira, changed hands in 3,280 deals on the floor of the Nigeria exchange. The equity cap settled at 26.60 trillion naira. Now, the Nigerian equities market have stayed resilient despite challenges that the stock market around the world have looked at, especially on the front of inflation and how that particular economic data is affecting sentiment on stock markets. Let's go over to other African buzzes we monitor for you on the program. We'll begin from the JSE, talking about Africa's largest exchange, that's the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, 73,198. Now, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange opening higher, 0.29%. However, for Ghana, we are seeing a negative close. That's for Friday, 0.16% there, down at 2,450. Now, looking at so many issues that's affecting what we are seeing happening with the stock market. Now, official data suggests that Ghana's inflation surged to as high as 50.3%. It's no longer news that the Ghanaian economy has been in murky waters for some time, and the economic managers in Ghana, the Ken Ofori-Atta, the president of the Ghanaian nation, are all coming together, putting heads together to ensure that the Ghanaian economy is rescued. We saw that the Ghanaian cedi, of course, rebounded from being the worst currency performing against the dollar to become the best currency performing against the dollar. Ghana is set to, of course, get what it has been demanding from the International Monetary Fund, $3 billion. We expect that to come in the new year, in the year 2023. For South Africa, on the other hand, politics is taking the front burner. Issues around what will happen in January and also in the coming year. We are seeing that with the tightening race between President Cyril Ramaphosa and his former health minister William Kinsey, this is expected, as it is expected to announce the head of the governing African National Congress, the ANC, in South Africa. Let's go over now to the United States and see what's happening on Wall Street. What does the picture look like for Wall Street? Unfortunately, the picture is red. Now, 0.85% there, lower for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. For the S&P 500, we are seeing a downturn of 1.11%. And for the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite, we are seeing the Nasdaq drop by 0.97%, as you can see from this chart on the board here. Now, all the arrows are pointed downward in the red zone, and this is as a result of the fact that major averages are posting their second straight week of losses for the first time since September. Investors are struggling to shake off recession fears. Also, there's issues about recession lurking in the corner in the year 2023, and that's what a lot of investors are looking at. Where do we put our monies, especially when the recession comes? So we are seeing that sending some level of jitters into the markets. Let's go over to the European street. European markets were cautiously higher, coming off a losing week as hawkish comments from major central banks signaled further monetary policy tightening in the year 2023. For the FTSE 100 in the UK, up 0.31%. The CAC in France, up 0.71%. Talking about France. France lost to Argentina for the World Cup finals yesterday. And for the DAX index in Germany, Germany is up 0.50%. We saw President Emmanuel Macron there in the stadium. Also, France have also had their fair share of protests, talking about the standard of living issues happening in France. And we saw a lot of that affect sentiment down here in the stock market. Let's go over to the Asia Pacific region, where we are seeing markets and traders still struggling to some levels. They can't look past recession fears, as you can see here, from the Nikkei 225 in Japan to the Shanghai Composite in mainland China and the South Korean Kospi, all staying largely negative, all staying in the red. What will the recession look like? How will it affect cost of living in these economies? There's also the issue of the COVID-19 fears in China. So all of that is taking a toll on the markets. Let's go over to the commodities chart now. Oil prices reclaimed ground on Monday after toppling more than $2 a barrel in the previous session. So we are seeing $79 per barrel for Brent crude. The international benchmark for crude oil is down 0.01%. For silver is still staying at the $23.37 mark now. It's up 0.71%. However, we have some good news now for Nigeria. Nigeria has regained its position as the largest crude oil producer in Africa, producing 1.186 million barrels per day ahead of Algeria and Angola in the November 2022 report. That's the monthly oil market report of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Of course, it's not Uhuru yet, but then again, we're seeing activity speed up in the Nigerian oil sector. Nigeria is going back again to top the chart as the largest crude oil producer in Africa. Going to the bullion now, the yellow metal gold. Gold is trading at $1,796.15 an ounce, up 0.21%. For some experts, they have opined that the issue of gold, is gold really a safe haven for investors? That has also come into the fore. The investors in the gold market are looking at cues from the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank, what Jerome Powell and his team, what they are saying, and that is also putting a cap on prices. For the crypto watch, let's look at the cryptocurrency market and see what the prices are like. Now, for the flagship cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, $16,740, up 0.14%. Ethereum is at $1,180, up 0.23%. And for the Binance coin, it's down 2.78%. That's the only downtrend we have on this chart at $245.09. So we have issues. The cryptocurrency market has had its own fair share of what really challenged the cryptocurrency segment in the year 2022. Talking about what happened with FTX, we are hearing issues about Sam Bankman-Fried being remanded in Bahamas. We're also hearing issues about him seeking for an extradition into the United States. So a lot of those monitoring this market are looking to those cues to know what exactly would be the sentiment like for the market and how would the cryptocurrency market really end the year 2022. Those are the numbers we have for you to crunch on the program today. My guest has joined me in the studio. He is Paul Alaje, and I really want to get your opinion specifically on this issue around the markets. Now, I was speaking to a professor of capital market, and he says the Nigerian stock market has remained resilient despite issues around rising inflation and how we are seeing central bankers around the world racing to rein in inflation. In just 1 minute, let me hear your thoughts on the numbers and what's happening in the stock market.
Well, the stock market in Nigeria, especially Nigerian stock market, have remained very consistent. It has remained one of the stock market around the world that investors have come to recognize. Even remember that during COVID, where global stock market was going down, Nigeria actually performed against the tide. Yes. As Nigeria stock market was arguably the best around the world. Now that we're having global crisis, which of course the economic indicator that we have seen among these factors remain inflation, and maybe exchange rate may also have implication because the stock market is in Nigeria, and we have seen that official rate naira has weakened to about 445 naira to the US dollar. The stock market have continued to blossom in some way. Yes, we have had some ups and downs, but on the average, when you look at the average rate, I would say that the market have performed, and I think the regulators have tried their best to keep the stock market abreast and to be within the global practice.
Okay, I'll come back to you to speak more during the interview segment of the program. However, let's bring you up to speed with stories in the world of business. The Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria is hopeful that before the new year, the Central Bank of Nigeria will change its policy about cash withdrawal limits. National President of AMBAN, Victor Olojo, stated that the National Assembly has pledged to persuade CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele to change the policy. Giving an update on the matter, Olojo noted that the group has soft-pedaled on its planned legal action because of the assurances offered by the CBN and National Assembly that POS operators would not be impacted by the policy. He did, however, issue a warning that if the policy was not changed before the end of the year, its members will protest in the streets and sue the Apex Bank. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics International Trade records that manufacturers imported 1.88 billion naira worth of raw materials in the last 9 months of 2022. According to the Q1-Q3 foreign trade report, this is a 22.36% decrease from the 2.43 billion naira spent over the same period in the previous year. The decline was caused by the country's lack of foreign exchange, which forced many businesses to source their raw materials domestically. Businesses that were unable to obtain their inputs locally were forced to halt operations. Now, those are the business roundup stories we have for you today. On today's edition of the program, we'll be looking at the Nigeria Development Update released by the World Bank, one of the Bretton Woods institutions. We saw a downgrade of the Nigerian economic growth forecast for the year 2022 from 3.8% to 3.1%. Also talking about how inflation has pushed 5 million people, or is going to push 5 million people into poverty in the year 2022. Talking about issues about looking for measures, urgent choices now, according to the report, saying Nigeria needs to make urgent choices. This begs the question, what are the urgent choices that need to come on the table to see that the Nigerian economy is really revamped and put on the path of growth and remain on that path also? You get to hear more from my guest today, Paul Alaje, lead economist, SPM professionals, who will speak to some of these issues that have come back from the NDU released by the World Bank. Please stay with us.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us on the program. If you're just tuning in, this is Business Daily, and we're coming to you live from Trust Television. I still have my guest with me in the studio. He is Paul Alaje, the Senior Economist at SPM Professionals. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I know you have seen the Nigeria Development Update released by the World Bank, and I really want to ask, is that report a true reflection of Nigeria's socio-economic reality?
Well, I think it's a true reflection of what we have right now. Inflation in Nigeria continues to go up, and you know, inflation and poverty, as inflation goes up, more people becomes poor. This is because the earning capacity of people, even though they may be earning what they are earning, the figure may be the same, but what money can buy, it's what matters to economics, not the amount of money that is earned. So when you look at the policy, government have made to combat poverty in 2019, particularly June 12, President Buhari had promised that from 2019 was going to lift 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years. And if you look at that, 2019, we have 2020, 2021, 2022, we've done 3 years and a half. Instead of having more people leave poverty bracket, 130 million plus people are now multi-dimensionally poor. Recall that in 2018, I think you or one of your colleagues I spoke with on multi-dimensional poverty. Yeah. It was about 80 million. Now we have over 100. So between 2018 to 2022 or 21, we have added almost 50 million people to poverty net. About 40 to 50. That's worrisome. So it means that some of the policy President Buhari and his team have adopted, or they've mentioned, rather than poverty reducing, poverty seems to be growing. So government have adopted policies such as giving 5,000 to the poorest of the poor. They've not been able to come out of poverty. Yes. Such as Anchor Borrowers Program, rather than poverty reducing, poverty abuse. So central bank have used a number. In fact, this regime of central bank have done more developmental banking than any other that I've seen in history. So, but central bank continue to do that. We have even seen Development Bank of Nigeria. We have seen effort of Bank of Industry, for monetary harm. We have seen all these banks doing all they could. And on the fiscal hand, we have seen President Buhari even start a Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Rather than poverty reducing, the number of poverty in Nigeria continue to grow. That's on one hand. On the other hand, unemployment. The last figure seen also shows that unemployment is quite high. Yeah. Inflation, over 21%. In fact, the last count is still increased. These are major economic indicators. We have seen GDP. And I've said that we need to look at GDP in the real context. In 2020, Nigeria went into a recession. So 2021, when we thought, we came out of recession. But you have not, when you look at the volume of what we have done, was it up to the pre-COVID period? Yeah. If it's now up to pre-COVID period, by how much should we have grown? So clearly speaking, beyond the numbers, we need to look at Human Development Index. How were we rated in Human Development Index? Looking at what is happening to income, what is happening to health, and what is happening to education. Human Capital Index, what is happening to education, what is happening to health. Nigeria had reduced significantly. The last measure of complexity index, Nigeria was at the bottom. On the last measure, complexity means how much knowledge as a people we have contributed to the world. When people are making chips, when I say chips, not what they eat, I mean what you have in the phone, Nigeria, we are still exporting crude oil. Even things that could make our people more prosperous in terms of crude oil, we saw a monumental fraud that you journalists within Nigeria revealed to us. And I saw on the TV screen how people have effrontery in a governed state to divert our pipelines, enriching themselves. And we wonder why President Buhari's agenda, mission, vision did not pay off. All of the things he wanted to do. Why, rather than reducing poverty by 10 million, on the average 5 to 8 million people are joining the poverty line. The answer is simple. The policy seems not to align with the vision. And we are not seeing this. So if you have asked me that, do I think that World Bank report is, I think it is. The areas where I have concerns, the area where I think government should do more, and the areas where I think government should not buy hook, line, and sinker, I would mention maybe when the time comes.
You know, when you look at the picture, people would tend to call economists or those that opine on things like this as doomsday prophets. But then again, there's like you said, beyond the numbers, sometimes when we see these numbers, it is important to give these numbers a human face, because then that makes it easy and relatable. The World Bank also spoke about urgent choices. The country director of the World Bank, Shubham Chaudhry, he said that business unusual choices, because we have seen business as usual for a very long time. The urgent choices were stated in those reports, but outside that, I want you to speak to the urgent choices that should be brought to front burner.
There are a number of things that we need to do. The first thing we need to do is about exchange rate versus or vis-a-vis subsidy. These are very key things we need to discuss. Nigeria is a net importer. 80% of our imports are finished product. In your own report this morning, as a manufacturer, apart from being an economist, I'm also a manufacturer. Yeah. As a manufacturer, you saw that the volume we import has reduced. So if you're not an economist, you feel, oh, that is fine. Not knowing that it became costlier because we are doing business in this economy and exchange rate is getting poorer. To access FX is an issue till today. So we are forced, most people are forced to go to the parallel market, and if the rate in parallel market is not affordable, they close shop. What happens? Unemployment grows, poverty rate grows. And if exchange rate continues to grow, you will see direct impact on inflation. So there are choices we must make. And should we keep subsidy? If you want to keep subsidy without doing something about exchange rate, you will have a big problem in your hand. Fire will burn your hand. 2, if we say we want to remove subsidy, without doing something about exchange rate, what you will be paying for will be exchange rate or poor policy. And if you look at it, in 2012, what was exchange rate? In 2014, what was exchange rate? In 2006, even in 16-17, when central bank said they want to take exchange rate to manage floating, it was around 250. Later to 306. If exchange rate were to be 306 today, what we are paying for subsidy would have been eliminated. So what we are paying for in the real sense is exchange rate disparity in the real sense. So we are not paying for increase in prices. It's our inability to produce. And when I say exchange rate, I'm not saying that central bank has not tried. No. I'm saying that central bank cannot print the US dollars. It is not what people want to hear. What economists want us to say is that devalue the currency, let it be 1,000 to $1. What they refuse to understand is that last year, I spoke with business correspondents all around the country. And I said that just 2 days ago, Nigeria added 1 trillion naira to our borrowings. You know why? Because all the money we borrowed, some of them are in hard currency. The moment you devalue, you have also devalued what you borrowed. So what we borrowed automatically increased by 1 trillion naira.
I want to hear what other choices, because time is going.
Another thing we need to do is who is going to be the chief executive of Nigeria. You see, he will make a lot of decisions. If the person is not pro-markets, it's going to be a big challenge. We have 4 top front runners, if you like. Some said 3, but I may want to say 4. Yes. Among these 4 top runners, which of them, not about where they came from or their religion, which of them is pro-markets? Which of them is selfless? These are things we must consider. Now, another thing is we must deliberately turn the hands of time of Nigeria. Whether we are going to manipulate it, whether we are going to force it, the hands of time must change. We must support manufacturing. Nigeria seems to be comfortable with consumption. How do we begin to manufacture? I give you an instance, and I've said this to many Nigerians before. We have over 40 million pupils. We have people who are unemployed. We are still importing school uniform. You see, for every poor nation, the solution to their problems are with them. Next year, I can tell you that we are going to add $2 billion to Chinese and India economy minimum. To do what? To buy school uniforms. Because a number of our pupils, when they go to school, they have to wear something. Now, but if we cannot produce checkers, even with our states, if what we can produce is abada, quote and unquote, Ankara, quote and unquote, can't our pupils wear them? They can.
I think Ghana implemented something like that.
Yes, Ghana implemented, but look at unemployment rate in Ghana and Nigeria. You see the difference. Ghana tried, what Ghana is suffering from is redenomination without increasing output. True. Redenomination is fine. Turkey practiced redenomination and increased output. Before Turkey redominated our economy, today, when you want to buy foreign clothes, where do you say it's coming from? Turkey. Because Turkey understood that before you redominate, your output must grow by the number of digits you are redominating with. So the president of Turkey ensured that policy was first implemented.
We have just 30 seconds.
Ghana wanted to do the shortcut, but Nigerian authority is not even taking more action towards manufacturing. It's good for us to say 5 million people, we give them for 5,000 naira. It has not delivered anybody. China practiced it, it failed. India practiced it, it failed. Largest nation in a continent, they are first manufacturing nation. And some really, Nigeria must improve manufacturing and production components from the current 15 to 20% to minimum of 50%. At that time, it will be a choice for somebody to be a bandit because government will have reasons. You have several factories in Kaduna, you have in Kano, you have in Katsina, you have in Oyo, you have in Nnewi.
Yes.
Why do you want to carry gun when your per capita income has significantly increased?
Thank you so much, Paul Alaje.
Thank you so much for
Senior economist, SPM professional. So like he has rightly stated, make Nigeria a manufacturing hub and we'll see the economic output of the country soar higher. Thank you once again for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's why we draw the curtains on the program today. Thank you for investing your time with us on the program. Don't forget you can get all the updates you need. Trust us to bring you trusted updates on the news and news making the polity on our social media platforms on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook. Go to YouTube and subscribe, and I promise you're not going to miss out. I am Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you always for joining and continue to stay safe.